Hello guys, here we are again with a new video related to our one of our last topics previous to the exam, which is, as some of you may remember, known as taxonomy, the science of naming and classifying organisms. Now, why so important taxonomy for some scientists like biologists, ecologists, and every person that leads or studies organisms? Well, just as we found in this slide, we have already found just 1.2 million of organisms just belonging to the animal kingdom. That would be leaving aside plants, bacteria, fungi, and every other type of organism besides animals. So with a huge number of organisms like that, we need to find a system to name them and to classify them, just like you should do with your messy room. For example, if you can't find something in it, well, the easiest way to have an order will be organizing, obviously. Now, we can have two things in here. Put a name to the things and classify them according to their similarity, their use, or the way in which we can find them easily. Now, this is the core of taxonomy, the way in which we name organisms and how are we going to classify it. Now, as you may remember from our class, we are going to see three different scientists that made important things or contributions to taxonomy. The first one was Carl von Linné, this French guy, also known as the father of taxonomy, because he made two important contributions to taxonomy, or in this case the science of classifying and naming organisms. The first one was the establishment of 7 taxonomical categories in which we can group or organize different living things or species. In this case, they just were based on their physical resemblance. Now, I decided to place this picture over here so you can remember that each category, each broad category will contain a lot of different categories inside until we found the smallest of all the categories, taxonomical categories, known as the species. In the species, we're going to have just one type of organism, like this picture clearly represents. For example, in the domain Eukarya, which is one of the biggest taxonomical categories of all, we will have a lot of different types of organisms. We can have from a fungi to a fish to a zebra or a dolphin, and also a bear. Now, they are all grouped together because they have cells with a nucleus, eukaryotic cells. This is the higher or the broader taxonomical category of all. Until we advance to the taxa of a species, we're going to start reducing the different types of organisms we can find until we will find just one type of species. Now, in the concept of genus, for example, this is going to be clear. Once we finish the explanation, we can have different types of bird, different species of bird. Now, they all belong to the same genus, which is Ursus, and then the different species will change just the last name. In this case, the scientific name of the black bear will be Ursus americanus, which was the second thing Carlo Linné made. The rules for naming or for writing proper scientific names. Now, this is important because, remember, scientific names is the only way in which we can worldwide know in the scientific community the organisms. Now, remember, the two last categories, genus and species, will form the scientific name of the organisms. Okay, scientific name. Now, I decided to put this picture so you can remember that each taxonomical category will contain smaller categories inside. This is just like an accumulative exam, for example. Now, killer whales, this is an example that I found on the internet. You can Google it also. Belongs to the kingdom Animalia. Obviously, they are not plants, they are not bacteria, they are not algae. They have been grouped in the phylum Chordata because they have a backbone, just as many other animals. And then we'll start going deeper or in smaller categories. They belong to the class Mammalia, just as humans, to the order Cetacea, to the family Delphinidae, Delphinidae, remember they're in Latin, In this family, we can find also dolphins because of, remember, the physical resemblance. This is the core of Linnean taxonomy, the resemblance between the organisms. And finally, the two last taxons or taxa, which are genus and species, that form the scientific names. Now, we need to make a comparison between common names and scientific name. Remember, this is the good one, the one that we will use for scientific community, and is worldwide accepted. It never changed because it's written in Latin, and it has this next rule. The first letter must be always capital, the rest lowercase. It must be underlined or with quotation marks, and it will be always formed by two names, the genus and the specific epithet, which together form the scientific name. Now, common name, remember, it changed from country to country, so they will be a little bit difficult to talk about it when we're in different countries, besides using scientific name, but just remember they will be used in the scientific community. Okay, now let's continue to the second guide that makes something important to the taxonomy science. It will be Robert Whittaker. Now, some of you may remember that Robert Whittaker was the one to establish the classification of organisms in 5 different kingdoms: Kingdom Protist, Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plants, and Kingdom Animal. Now, as some of you may remember, Protist Kingdom will contain protozoans and algae, and everything resembles to an algae. Monera Kingdom, we studied them separated into the actual bacteria or modern bacteria known as eubacteria, and the extreme bacteria or ancient bacteria known as archaea. We're going to talk about a little later. In Kingdom Fungi, we will have multicellular organisms like mushrooms, and we will have unicellular organisms like yeast and molds. Plant Kingdom, well, everything resembles to a plant, and Animal Kingdom, well, that's easy. Some of you, well, I suppose, may be asking, what was the profession of Robert Whittaker? Well, he was an ecologist. And the main discoveries of Robert Whittaker were done in this year, 1969. So let's advance. Let's go forward into the story of taxonomy. The next guy was Carl Woese. I haven't said this name on class. It's one of the important things in taxonomy, so you can study them with this video. Carl Woese was a microbiologist, and their main discoveries were done in this year, and as you can see, it's, well, quite modern. So the last modification that taxonomy had was the classification into domains. Because he was a microbiologist, he was in charge of studying the different types of cells. He proposed a new classification based on the type of cells, coming up with this diagram. He proposed to classify the different organisms into Archean domain, which include the extreme bacteria, and as you can see in this picture, it also classified extreme bacteria. It also classified bacteria in, for example, the ones that love heat, the one that love salt. It could have also the one that love very low temperatures. The other domain is known as eubacteria, in which we can have common bacteria like the one that eat carbon found in the soil, or the one that produces diseases. And in the other hand, we have eukaryota or eukarya domain, in which we are going to find all the different kingdoms that we already know. Now remember, the classification in domains is broader than the kingdom classification. Okay, so it's the last improvement that taxonomy had, just because we are basing our classification in the types of cells. The one that has nucleus, the eukaryotic cells, and the prokaryotic cells, the ones that does not have nucleus. Okay, so in this case, just these two branches of the prokaryotic organisms will belong to archaea and eubacteria. Now, let's talk a little bit of the history of an organism. Once Charles Darwin proposed the evolutionary theory, the organisms can be grouped not just because of their physical resemblance. It's logical that all these organisms, we have many physical differences. But if we are classifying them according to which organisms come from which common ancestor, we can have these types of diagrams, which we know as cladograms. Remember, they are going to study the evolutive history of an organism. Now, how can you read a cladogram? Remember, in our exam, we will have a cladogram. Remember, the last organism will be the common ancestor. In this case, it belongs to an organism which developed a backbone, right? Vertebrae. Now, the most ancient organism of this cladogram will be, for example, sharks. Then, as we advance further into the modern history of the species, we will have an organism, a common ancestor, which developed a bony skeleton, which means a skeleton made by bones. If you may remember, sharks have a skeleton made of cartilage, no bones, actual bones. And as we advance into this, for example, the most modern species of all will be the crocodiles and also the birds or the dinosaurs. The classification in this case is depending on an ancient or a common ancestor which developed a new type of egg. In this case, it will be a ovum, the type of ovum or ovule in which these organisms were fertilized is going to be a little bit different. We will have the ones that develop hair in one branch and the ones with scales or feathers in the other. So remember, this is just a theory. Never lose the focus on that. This is just a way to represent how can organisms could actually come to the different diversity that we have nowadays. But this is not a rule. This is not a law. It's just a theory. Finally, I decided to place this picture over here so you can know the actual name of the Carlos Linneo system, naming system. This is known as binomial nomenclature. Why binomial? Well, bi or d has the meaning of two names in which we can classify or name the different organisms. In this case, for example, we have a group of plants and common animals, and you can study and easily know the scientific names. For example, the onion that you ate, for example, in a sandwich or a salad or a stew, has the scientific name of Allium cepa. For example, wheat, the one that you use to make cakes or bread, has this scientific name. Remember, they are always written with the first word in capital letter and the rest in lowercase. Now, probably animal, a little bit more interesting than plants. Cat, like the ones some of you may have in your house, is known as Felis domestica or Felis domesticus. Dog, Canis familiaris. And, for example, we have a housefly, Musca domestica. So all of these are written following the rules of Carlos Linneo taxonomy. Well, I hope this video is useful to remember the taxonomical category, and remember to give a thumbs up on follow the channel, and we are going to see some more videos during the semester. Okay, bye.